Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro, everyone. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Elixir Specialty Coffee. And I also wanted to let you know, if you haven't heard already, that we are looking for a podcast intern. And this intern position is being advertised on our website, mapperforward.org/opportunities. If you are interested in becoming an intern for the Mapper Forward podcast, you should be somebody who is able to do work that is timed to a schedule. You should be able to do what you say that you can do. So I don't want anybody that promises the world and, I can do video editing and I can do audio editing, and et cetera, and then you're going to learn on the job. No, the fundamental skills that you need are advertised on the website. Please make sure that you have those. Other skills that you will grow into are absolutely going to be taught for you. But the fundamental skills of video editing and audio editing are going to be necessary for this job. If you are currently at university, you will probably find this internship great. So it will start as a part-time unpaid position for 6 months and can be done remotely from anywhere in the world. But it will then transition, if you last the 6 months, it will transition to an hourly role. And that will probably last for, a paid hourly role. And then if you're successful in that for 6 to 12 months, it will transition to a paid full-time position, and with a vision to transition the person over to the full-time title of podcast producer. So this role isn't necessarily for somebody who's passionate about coffee. This is for somebody who's passionate about podcasting and has the skills necessary to work on a podcast and all round on stuff to do with a podcast. So you could be in marketing, you could be in advertising, studying those things, studying audio production, sound production, any of those things. You will just need the basics in video and audio editing. But I want to put that out there and let you guys know that that's what we're looking for. Now to get to today's episode of the podcast. Today on the Daily Coffee Pro, we are talking about the statement, I don't know. Back when I was coming up as a puppy in the industry, the amount of information that was available to us as coffee professionals was nowhere near what's available today. And we found it very difficult to admit the things that we didn't know. The reason it was really difficult was because there was no data source or information source that we could really pick these things up and say, well, here is where the research has gone into showing that this is how you explain X, Y, Z. We were just swapping information, and I found it very intimidating that a lot of people that seemed to be around me happened to know all this stuff, and I didn't know as much as they knew. And then it turns out they didn't actually know anything. They were just regurgitating the same shit that they'd heard from other people. And so because I wasn't prepared to say that I knew anything, because I didn't have any solid evidence for the things that I knew what I was tasting, and I knew what I thought worked and didn't work, but I didn't know anything per se. I found it very intimidating. And the more people I speak to these days who were from those days, the more of them that admit that none of us knew what the fuck we were talking about. The worst part about it is that still happens today, like en masse. So many people are just not admitting what they don't know. And so what we end up with is an industry that has very weak foundational knowledge that can catapult them into their future careers. But here's the great news. The way that you can digest information these days is much more varied than even a couple of years ago. Podcasts are becoming a thing. Blog posts are available. Social media posts are there for people to put their ideas out and to discuss. And what's important is that you figure out, first of all, what it is that you don't know. And if the only person that you admit that to is yourself, that's a great starting point. And you don't have to learn everything all in one go. We are very big in what we teach at Map It Forward about the idea of having a 10-year plan. And using that 10-year plan, which we call a map, to figure out what you should be learning at what stages. And if you haven't received one of our maps, go and check out mapitforward.org/webinars. And we are starting to put up our webinars for people to get access to. If you want to learn how to learn and what the best ways for you are to plan your learning over a 10-year period, go and take those webinars. The cafe owners one is up now. The baristas one is going up soon. It's called Barista and Beyond, Mapping a Successful 10-Year Career as a Coffee Professional. And honestly, I so wish there was something like this around when I started my career. That's why I've created these things, is because I don't want people going into the future in their careers having to go through the same kind of stumbling and tripping over ourselves that we had to go through 20 years ago. There's no need for you to do it. But I'll tell you something, the majority of people in our industry do not want to admit what they don't know. And truth be told, we're only just starting as an industry to gather the correct information and do the research around this stuff. And that's a big deal. That's a really, really big deal, because it's only now that we're starting to research the genetics behind coffee plants. It's only now that we're really starting to dig deep into things like water chemistry, particle size, different, the science behind different brew techniques, all of these things. And if you want any more information on this, check out the episode that I just did. It was such a great conversation with Peter Giuliano. It was divine. And Peter is heading up the new Coffee Science Association, I believe it's called, for SCA. That's not right how I've just said it, but I will, if you check out the episode with Peter Giuliano on the Map It Forward podcast, you'll see that we as an industry are really only just starting to get into understanding the real information behind what the fuck we're doing. It's one thing to say that you don't, or to go a certain time in your career not knowing stuff. Okay, so it wasn't until the last year that I knew what the C market was. But I become complacent when I finally do know and I don't do anything about understanding it, particularly when it's an integral part of my industry. It's an integral part of the coffee supply chain. Same thing as learning about plant genetics. I'm not going to learn everything there is to know about plant genetics in one go, but I am following World Coffee Research, and I am starting to read up and learn and listen to podcasts about the work that they're doing. And I'm not going to understand it all in one go, but shame on me if I know the things that I don't know and I don't get about the business of learning them in an industry that I want to have a long-term career in. And so I'm inviting you to admit what you don't know. And then I'm inviting you to take our webinars so that you can get better versed at what you don't know, and then empower yourself so that when the robots do take over doing the the shit that can be done that's automated, you still have a job, because not everyone's going to. On that note, peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day.